example of like a place where movements are happening and incorporating art and culture, or not even so much incorporating art and culture, but actually being inextricable from arts and culture. And I think that that's true in many places and throughout history. And so I'm going to kind of zoom out a little bit from where we've just learned about like a specific example and talk a little bit about kind of the history of the ways that art and culture and cultural production has been used in different types of social movements. And I'm going to focus mostly on music because obviously I'm a musician and that's like what I do, but I'll try and be, I think that most of the things that I talk about in relation to music apply to other art forms, whether it's visual art or dance or poetry or videography or so many different ways that we can express ourselves. I'll tell you all just like briefly a little bit about myself. So I'm, like I said, I'm from Boston and I now work for Fight for the Future, which is an internet freedom group with Giselli's partner and some other great folks. But for the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 years before that, I pretty much supported myself only by playing music. And I traveled, I had the great privilege to travel all over the US to, I don't know, my 3-year-old's been to like 14 countries since he was born. So we've kind of, I had a really great opportunity to travel a lot and play my music for a wide variety of different movements. I've traveled in the labor movement, playing in union halls. I've played in gay bars. I've played in Baptist churches. I've played in youth centers and on theater stages and all kinds of different places for a wide variety of different people. And I've learned a lot along the way and seen the power that music can have. And one of the things that I always joke about is how much I am able to get away with when I have a guitar in front of me. Where like I can go into a gay bar and sing about the environment in a way that like people wouldn't listen to me if I just started talking to people. Or I can get up on stage in front of 100 United Auto Workers in a miniskirt and sing Solidarity Forever, and people will listen to me in a way that they wouldn't if I wasn't engaging them through culture and through music and through something that sort of is seen as entertainment and as a way to connect. And that actually has really historical roots. And whenever I start talking about the role of music in social movements, I actually start by talking about puppetry. Which is a totally different art form, obviously, but the origins of puppetry I find really fascinating. That basically in times of monarchies, when it was like absolutely outlawed to say anything negative about those in power, and you would be like literally beheaded for making fun of the kings or queens, people invented puppets, and the puppets would say the things that people couldn't say. And I guess you can behead a puppet, but it doesn't really have the same impact. And people were kind of surreptitious about it, and there are ways that these stories propagated throughout societies, but people found really creative ways to challenge and question and say really revolutionary things without getting their heads chopped off. And I think that that's a really great example, and one that I've kind of imbued into my work, is like figuring out how can I say the most challenging, critical, dangerous thing that I can, but still have people hear me and not just shut me out. And I think that music is a really great way of doing that. But stepping back even further, I like to talk about music and art and how it relates to the movements, not only as educational. I think that's kind of the most obvious example where we're like, great, I can write a protest song that will teach everyone about homophobia or racism or whatever, and I can sing it and other people can learn it, and that's a great way to get the message out. But I think that music plays, that's definitely one of the biggest roles that music can play. But I think it can play other roles too. And so I often talk about it as being a tool, and so that educational piece is like where it can be a tool. But I think it can also be a weapon and a medicine. And so those are just kind of arbitrary terms that I've applied to the different uses of music. But I'm gonna play some songs and talk about some of those different uses historically and currently. So I'm going to start with a current song, a new song, to kind of just give you all an example of like what I do, and then I'm going to go back historically and kind of show you some of the roots of like where the fact that I'm not doing this in a vacuum, and I'm walking in the footsteps of a lot of people who come before me. But this is a song that I wrote fairly recently, and it's a critique of the modern gay rights movement, and kind of its failing to stand in solidarity with some of the most marginalized people within the queer community. And I'm queer, I should put that out there. So this isn't kind of an outsider perspective, it's an insider perspective. And I've played this song for literally for the people who are driving the thing that I hate most about this movement, and they liked it. So that's kind of, that's how we can, music is a good way that I would never just be able to come up to these people and say your organization is BS and ruining everything I care about queerness. But I can play this song for them and they're like, yeah, good beat. And then I guess also interesting about this song is it's part of a collaborative album that I'm working on with some hip hop artists. And that's an interesting kind of just, way that we often divide music up into genres, but for me it's more about what are we saying and what are we doing. People ask me if I am a drag queen. I tell them I've never been into royalty. That's why I'm up in the pub yelling fucking MP. Prince out of Ireland, Palestine, free. If I had to choose, I'd be a drag peasant. Organizing a rebellion, no time like the present. Glitter in my hair, pitchfork in the air. Coming for those mainstream, cause I swear. If the gay nation wants assimilation, white picket fence, Disney vacation, joining in their military occupation, locking people up with hate crimes legislation, equal to the people who run the corporations, living out in Park Slope gentrification. I say resist this elitist bullshit. I say it's time for a new movement. If you're feeling this song, you can all sing along. When I say queer, you say we're strong. Queer, we're strong. Queer, we're strong. Queer, we're strong. I've been waiting too long to be sitting listening to politicians saying, hey, give you another interview, give me another day. Have some patience, be a good gay. Just like FEMA with Katrina, they say help is on the way. But put your hands up if you're being lied to. Make some noise if the government is working for you. Check 1, 2, I guess we got our answer, so what are we gonna do? Let's riot in the streets till the break of dawn. Start a revolution while we're getting it on. The laughter of our children will be on revenge. The only rings on our fingers are for self-defense. So don't ask me what I think, cause I tell you what I'd say. We don't need gays in the military, we need militant gays. So yeah, that's an example, that's kind of a modern political song that I wrote and that I've used, I think, effectively to challenge some very pervasive assumptions about what it means to be a queer activist. But in a way that's humorous and kind of playful enough that even people who could disagree with me are gonna walk away from it thinking instead of just being fuck that kid that played that song. So again, that's the tool aspect, where it's a tool for communication, a tool for challenging, a tool for engaging and starting a conversation. And now I'll go back historically and look at some of the ways that it's been used in a tool in that way previously. And so one of the clearest examples, I think, is within the U.S. labor movement. And music, it certainly was a singing movement, and music was really permeated it. And one of the most effective things that the labor movement did was they took very popular songs that everyone already knew the tune to, mostly church songs, because colonialism and Christianity and such. But songs that if you walked into a factory hall, everyone would know the tune. But they changed the words and they changed the meanings, and they did that in a way that was that was able to kind of propagate an idea, and they used that as a tool for growing their movement. So we sang "Solidarity Forever" this morning at the opening, and that's obviously a great example. That's to the tune of "Battle Hymn of the Republic," which most people knew. But here's a great one, a great story about the labor movement. So an immigrant worker named Josef Hillström, better known as Joe Hill, came to the US from Sweden and wrote some of the great labor songs that we still know and sing today. In this one, he wrote to the tune of a church song. I forget what it was called. But basically, during these free speech fights, the industrial workers of the world, which is one of the more radical unions, would go out on the street and be trying to organize workers, and they would do this thing called soapboxing, where they stand up in a soapbox and they basically be like, brothers and sisters, come together, and then the cops would arrest them. And they would do that over and over again, and they'd fill up the jails and this and that. But then down the street, there would be the Salvation Army Band singing and playing music and collecting donations for the church. And so Josef Hillstrom, Joe Hill, kind of was like, well, if they can sing and dance and play music, then I guess we can too. And so he started his own band, and they somehow managed to get away with playing music even though they couldn't speak publicly against capitalism. And so this song's called Preacher and the Slave. I'm just gonna sing fragments of the example songs that I'm using so that we have more time to go through more examples. But this is a great like call and response song that they were able to use as a tool for growing their movement and just reach out to average people that were basically poor and who their primary connection to the song was like, yeah, what the fuck. Long-haired preachers come out every night. They try to tell you what's wrong and what's right. But if you ask them about something to eat, they will answer in voices so sweet. You will eat, by and by, in that glorious land up in the sky, way up high. Work and pray, live on hay, you'll get high in the sky when you die. That's a lie! Try that chorus. You will eat, by and by, in that glorious land up in the sky, way up high. Work and pray, live on hay, you'll get high in the sky when you die.
That's a lie!
There you go. So Joe Hill wrote that tune, and that's a great tool song, right? It's something that most people can hear that and be like, yeah, like I want to eat right now. Like I don't want to wait until I die to get some food. And it's a popular tune. It's participatory, and it's a great way to grow and spread your message. And then moving into the civil rights movement. There's a lot of great examples of tool songs too. Really utilitarian songs. That especially kind of I think were specifically designed to fight burnout, right? And like in these really difficult movements where you're up against forces that feel completely insurmountable, and like nothing you could ever possibly do would be enough to make a change against this like overwhelming system. And then we see that like really significant changes have happened, and while we like have an infinitely long way to go toward racial justice, people gave their lives and fought incredibly hard to get like the modicum of freedom that we do have now. But that wasn't easy, and I'm sure at many points along that road, many people dropped out of that movement as they do now, or people just felt like couldn't do it anymore. And there's just this great kind of catalog of songs, kind of basically like saying like I'm not going to do that. This is a great one that I love, written by 3 women who, like most people, I don't actually even know their names, and I'm like a buff on this stuff, but I forget their names. But they weren't songwriters, they weren't like popular singers or anything. They were just 3 women who were part of the movement who wrote this song that's been sung, I don't know, probably by millions of people by now. So, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching in the freedom land. Ain't gonna let no jailhouse turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let no jailhouse turn me around. Gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching in the freedom land. Ain't gonna let racism turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let racism turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching in the freedom land. So as you can see, it's like a zipper song. You can add in kind of whatever you want, which makes it really utilitarian, right? If whatever you're marching about on that specific day, it's very easy to take this song, take this melody, and kind of make it relevant to what you're doing at that moment. And it also has a great beat. It's an easy song to actually physically march to. And that's like really critical in these movements. Now, I like to think of it in ways where I ask myself, when we're talking about situations where people are being attacked by police and literally having a moment when they're like, we're going to stand up and fight or we're going to run away, I firmly believe that these songs have saved thousands of people's lives. that when there's a moment where like people could turn and run, and like that would actually lead to like more death and more violence, versus people standing their ground because they had these songs to sing together and bolster each other's bravery and energy. I firmly believe that these songs have saved lives, and that's something that we don't give music enough credit for. That it's not just entertainment, it's not just a way to spread the word. It actually is something that like literally can sustain us. And I know for myself, I have pretty intense post-traumatic stress disorder from being pretty severely beaten by police in Miami and then sexually assaulted by a police officer when I was in jail. And the only way that I can like be at a protest and like physically feel okay and not be like wanting to shit myself every time I see someone in uniform is by like singing to myself or singing with other people. And that gives me, like me personally, the bravery I need to participate in these movements and not be afraid. And I'm sure it does for many other people too. And there's so many of these amazing songs that are literally about that topic, we are not afraid. People singing that song are probably scared out of their minds, right? Like it's like, everyone's afraid of being killed or tear gassed or beaten. Like it sucks. But we can own that sentiment. Like we are afraid, but we're not so afraid we're not going to do this. Another great example, again, from the labor movement. Oh, you can't scare me. I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. No, you can't scare me. I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union till the day I die. These are, again, songs sung by people who literally were being threatened to be murdered if they signed a union card, and they did it anyway and sang these songs to bolster each other's spirit. So I think that's really powerful, and I love to give music credit for saving lives because I firmly believe it can. All right. So that's a little. So I've shifted then sort of a little bit from tool into weapon, where we're literally talking about music that has given people the courage to take serious risks, to fight power in really concrete and militant ways. But there's another piece of this too, where culture itself can be a form of defense for communities that are under attack. And I love that you brought up, asking about where are indigenous communities and all this in Brazil. And I think, there's a point at which capitalism and colonialism and patriarchy and all of these systems that we know are out there attacking our world, do really attempt to shut down culture or co-opt it. And simply preserving culture or continuing to participate in culture can be a way to resist that. One really great example of that is in Ireland. Ireland is a country that's been under occupation for over 800 years. They've had pretty much shit luck. The joke of the luck of the Irish, people don't think about it, it's a joke. Like, the Irish literally might be some of the unluckiest island on the planet. It's been, first it was the Vikings and then it was the British, and it's just kind of sucked there for a long time. And under British occupation in Ireland, most forms of traditional Irish language and music were outlawed. And that was a very concrete way that the colonial occupiers were trying to stifle resistance and get people to just sort of fall in line and be like, okay, sure, yeah, we're Irish subjects of British rule. And so one thing that I love, one aspect of that I think is really fascinating is the traditional form of Irish dance that most people think of, kale dancing. Like if you think about the step dancing and the whatever, and your arms are down by your side and there's very little motion from the waist up. And I just figured, well, that's just how they danced. Like why not? Turns out that actually has its origins in these early times of colonial Ireland under British occupation, when Irish dancing was outlawed. And people would dance in barns and do these secret dances, and it was incredibly illegal. And if you were caught, like pretty much people would be killed or thrown in jail or whatever. And so most of the dancing happened from the waist down, because if you walk by and you're looking in through the windows, you're just seeing people kind of like standing around as opposed to dancing. At least that's the story that goes with it. And the degree to which, that sounds a little impractical to me, but the point being that there's like some roots of like how this dance is done today is actually born out of people doing it in secret and as an act of resistance to colonialism. Even though the dance itself doesn't necessarily, isn't like explicitly political or telling a specific story, like infused in its movements are these militant kind of moments of resistance. And whenever I do this workshop, I always just like to play a little tiny bit of Irish music because it's so immediately noticeable as Irish music, and the people who are preserving it and playing it today are pretty much all doing so as an explicit act of resistance to colonization and the wiping out of their culture. So. Irish tunes, I love them. And so that culture has been infused into modern Irish culture too. And some of the most popular Irish songs continue to be about kind of the immigrant experience, either of being forced to relocate to the U.S. or to go to Britain to get work, or especially there's a lot of songs. Probably the literally most popular Irish ballad is about being thrown in jail. It's called "The Fields of Athenry." You've maybe heard it. I mean, it's an incredibly popular song. People sing it at like sports events and stuff, which is very strange. But it's roll, 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 lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small free birds fly. Our love was on the wing, we had dreams and songs to sing. Now it's lonely round the fields of Athenry. So a very beautiful chorus that doesn't have immediately identifiable political content, but it's expressing the sorrow of an entire nation that has faced colonialism, and the rest of the song is about basically a man being taken away from his family and being thrown in prison for stealing corn to feed his children. And so, it's amazing to me how these traditional forms of music carry forth resistance and protest in them, even where they don't seem to be, even when people don't think of them as being political. Another great example from the U.S. is Woody Guthrie's "This Land Is Your Land," which everyone sings all the time in school and stuff, but rarely do they get to the verse that goes, as I was walking that ribbon of highway, I saw a sign that said private property, but on the other side it didn't say nothing. That sign was made for you and me. So totally explicit rejection of private property as a notion, in one of the most popular American songs of all time. So that's another, kind of great example for how this tradition can carry itself forward. Trying to think. I promised Irish songs. I played civil rights and union songs. I have like one Nueva Canción song from resistance in Latin America I could sing, or we could call it and take questions. I don't know what time it is. I haven't been paying attention.
12:17.
What do you guys want to do? Huh? Time for questions? Great.
I did them.
Huh?
I have to.
Okay.
Do yours? Two first.
I do. First.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
Why the rallies in US don't aggregate? I never saw rallies in US with marching bands or music pushing them, or involved. Why is so? What is it? Is it happen sometimes, or something no? It's another room for that. I can't understand that.
I think there's a bunch of things at play. I mean, definitely there are. I mean, definitely I'd say most big demonstrations here that will have a marching band or incorporate some music in some way. It's often an afterthought. And I think that's like a big piece and part of that is capitalism, right? You know, most musicians, even very political musicians are struggling to support their project and are like, you know, really, you know, pushing to like even just be able to continue doing what they're doing, or they're like working day jobs and whatever. So then you have the situation where, you know, most of the great political bands that you could book for your rally either want $1,000 to show up and play because that's like realistically what they need to like support what they're doing, or, you know, have other jobs and stuff and have obligations that like make it really difficult. And so that's like an issue that I feel like our movements need to address, and like the whole question of this conference with solidarity economy is, you know, how do we support artists and cultural workers that are doing this work so that they can support the movement, you know, and how do we, you know, for me, I basically had to quit, you know, or like I wasn't able to continue supporting my family playing music, and I had to, you know, investigate other things. And you know, and I was doing pretty good. I mean, I was at a point where like I could turn out 50 people in most cities that I went to, and you know, was like selling CDs online, and like, you know, things were like looking pretty good. But you know, it's not economy proof. And when the economy tanked and people didn't have money to buy CDs anymore, and you know, or would go to the show and not have anything to throw in the hat, then like that's it, you know. And so there isn't a sustained way that political music can exist outside of a capitalist framework. And so I think that really limits what we can do. And where the movement is at as far as having kind of like explicitly political music. And then as far as like marching bands and stuff, I think, you know, we have it, but it's not infused into the organizing in a way that it doesn't feel like an afterthought. You know, I think it's, you know, most of the organizers are like working around the clock to like make the thing happen, and it's not, you know, I think we need more, it needs to be like the beginning. You know, when we start sitting down and envisioning something, we need to think about how arts and culture fit into it. As opposed to having it be like, okay, we've organized this big protest, oh crap, we should really get some music for it. Is that?
Yeah, totally.
And like logistically doing songs at rallies, like has that been like an easy thing? Like, 'cause you need probably either, you know, sound system or
right.
just doing singing, and if you can teach it on the spot, or like, how have you been doing that a lot? Doing it at rallies, or